Welcome to another Foolish Thoughts episode. This is Joe Sabrone, aka A Fool for Learning, your training and learning consultant. And our foolish thought for today is, I want to sell and make lots of money. In this episode, we'll be looking at selling. And to help me with this topic is my special guest, Derek Ferramosca. Let me tell you a little bit about Derek. Derek was born and raised right here in Montgomery County, Maryland, and graduated from the University of Maryland in 2009 with a bachelor's degree in English literature. He has been a sales professional since 2010. He began his career in business development and has worked his way up to the level of senior account manager. Since 2016, his focus has been in the manufacturing space, helping companies bring their ideas from prototype stage to full-scale production. His specialties are the aerospace, defense, and automotive sectors. He currently works at GKN Additive Forecast 3D and lives in Northern Virginia with his family. Now, let's tell you a little bit about the company. GKN Additive Forecast 3D provides a full spectrum of 3D printing, rapid machining, and quick-turn tooling solutions for the highest quality prototyping and production. This is a rarity in the marketplace as they run all of the manufacturing equipment in-house and have designed and built much of it themselves. They are an SAP additive manufacturing partner and the official West Coast MJF by HP Experience Center. They are uniquely qualified for both prototypes and production manufacturing. Now, it's important to note, for my listeners to note, that I met Derek when I joined the Lido Civic Club, which is an organization of businessmen and professionals who share not only their business interests, but also their Italian-American culture while volunteering in various philanthropic activities. Now, in addition, I learned when we sat down to dinner at one of our general meetings that he also attended the same elementary school as my children, although a few years ahead of them. And so with that, welcome, Derek.
Thank you, Joe. Very excited to be here. Very excited to talk about my experiences and share that with the audience.
Okay, so welcome. We're so glad to have you here today. Now, our topic is, I want to sell and make lots of money. Now, I'm not a salesperson. In particular, I'll be honest with you, I really don't like sales. I think I like I think it's the rejection part. That kind of turns me off. But one of the first questions I have for you and say about sales is there a particular personality or a specific set of traits that makes one best for this type of occupation?
Yes, and I've met so many salespeople and really been in a position to understand them and study them and vice versa. Talk about this with other sales professionals. And a big part of it is being outgoing and liking just talking. If you're a communicator, if you like to focus on communication, if you're really good at connecting with people or connecting people, it's definitely an occupation that would treat you well in that sense. Also, you do need to understand rejection and push through rejection, and there is a certain amount of mental toughness to it, as well as intuition, you could say, because, and I've talked about this with other salespeople, and what separates the average salesperson from maybe a better salesperson is understanding what's behind what someone's saying more than what they're actually saying. So if you believe you have those attributes, sales can be a profession for you.
Okay. Anything else on the personality or traits that one should have? Is it good organizational skills? Is it the ability to network really, really well? Any other thoughts on that?
Networking is a huge part of it. If you enjoy going on LinkedIn and social media and digging deep, so to speak. And also, I believe if you like learning new things, that's a very particular aspect of it where I've been fortunate enough to learn about the oil and gas industry or the automotive industry. Or one time I spoke to someone who needed some 3D printing parts for a trade show, and their specialty was cleaning out acid tanks that held acid, something like that. But but the point is, you get to learn, depending on your industry, depending on what you do, you get to learn about lots of different companies. You get to meet new people constantly, and I think an appreciation of novelty is something that may draw you to sales.
Okay. So let's say I have some of that skill set. I have that ability to communicate really well and to network and the other things that you've talked about. And I think I want to get into sales. Where do I start? Should I begin directly selling a particular product or service, or should I do the service after I've used the product? What's your experience?
Oddly enough, my experience really was starting at the bottom and then working my way up. And when I say the bottom, I do mean just cold calling people, or if you're literally on the ground, if you have, whether it's a political action committee or something like that, handing out pieces of paper on the street, asking people if they're interested to save the whales, so to speak. That's the classic example, right? But you can start at the bottom, and that's a good way to find out if it is for you. And I've met plenty of people, no, I hate it, I don't like this. And that's how you really find out. The other way, which isn't so common, but I heard this adage before, you can teach an engineer how to sell, but you can't teach a salesperson how to be an engineer. Some people transition to sales that way, where they are an expert or a subject matter expert, or SME, and then they decide, sure, I can sort of cross sides and just start introducing myself to people, and I can sell that way. And that's usually at a more technical level,
Right?
because it's a bit opposite of what I was saying before, where you start at the bottom and go up. Like, I can start at the bottom of a telephone company and learn about telephones, whereas if I know everything about a telephone, yeah, I can just call someone who needs 1,000 of them and get the conversation going. But those are the two ways I've seen most people get into sales.
Let's say I get into sales. I've graduated from college, or maybe even if I don't have any college, or maybe a year of college, I get into sales. What should I expect? What are the top maybe 2 or 3 things that I should expect maybe in the first 6 months of me being in this particular profession?
Well, sales is unique in that you sort of need to expect the unexpected.
Okay.
In the sense that, it depends on the economy. It depends on how a business like, I specialize in business to business sales, not really business to consumer. So you sort of suffer the slings and arrows of, okay, XYZ defense contractor lost their contract that's responsible for 80% of their business. Guess what? Things are going to trend down. And that could affect your station with the company you're working with currently. So you need to be prepared for those sort of things. But a part of being a good salesman, or a person, is having a broad base of customers that you can work with, so you're not relying on one customer for everything. And those are the sorts of things that you need to be prepared for, in terms of things go bust and things go boom. And you need to be prepared for both. Now, the other side of it is you need to be prepared for competition. You're going to be compared to other people. You're going to be compared to other people's performance. And you need to be ready to dig deep, and do everything you can to make sure you're doing what your company needs you to do. So in that sense, it's almost like baseball or football. And I've seen ex-athletes do very well at sales.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. One was almost a professional tennis player, and other football players, et cetera, because they have a need to do better, or to excel. Right?
Okay,
Or to the need to beat someone else.
Right.
And that's a part of it. So you need to be prepared for that. And you need to be prepared for change, because sales does have a higher turnover rate, whether you're doing well or not. You see people leave even though they may be the best salesperson on the floor. You see people leave because maybe they're not doing that well that quarter. Or, it's, in that sense, I don't meet a lot of salespeople who've been with a company a very long time. Now I definitely have, but it's usually not the norm, especially in today's environment. Things seem to be high turnover in general. So those are the things you need to be prepared for.
So So you don't expect to see someone in a sales position with a company, with one particular company, for 10, 15, 20 years anymore, which that might have been in the past, but not today. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Because I do remember, I guess as a child, I remember a particular gentleman from Pitney Bowes, and he had been with Pitney Bowes for like 25 years as a sales rep for them. And so I guess we don't see that. People are, and what would you say is, how long would you estimate that someone stays with a particular company as a sales rep?
Based on my experience, and I've tried to hang on to certain positions
Mm-hmm.
longer than most, I believe, I would say a long tenure would be 5 years.
About 5 years.
If I see a 5 year tenure these days, I'm thinking, wow, they've definitely done a good job. They've
Mm-hmm.
made the right connections, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera. But even a 2 or 3 year tenure could be average
Okay.
for some companies I've interfaced with,
Mm-hmm.
or just anecdotally talking to other salespeople.
So if I look at someone's resume and I see them jumping every 3 to 5 years to a different company in the sales profession, that would be considered normal, correct?
These days, I believe so.
Okay.
Given, like I said, the boom and bust nature of business, also the shifting technology
Mm-hmm.
sectors that we
Mm-hmm.
have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can just looking at the startup sector that now has slowed down a lot. Some companies were hot for a year
Mm-hmm.
and then it slows down
Mm-hmm.
really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, especially with technology sales in particular, that would not surprise me per se.
Okay. Okay. So let's say I decide I want to get into sales. What are some things I should avoid? Are there things that I should really make sure I don't do when I get into sales? Like, don't do the whole party animal type thing. What are some things I should stay away from? What are key pieces of advice that you would give a new person? Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that.
I would say that's such a great question because I think being conservative with your behavior is always
Mm-hmm.
recommended,
Mm-hmm.
but just avoid, the classic red flags. If you see them once, that's probably going to be if you see too much turnover, if you're looking at headlines that don't line up with what you're seeing on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
I think those are some of the biggest red flags you need to work out,
Mm-hmm.
look for these days. Maybe talk to some people before you do the interview process,
Mm-hmm.
or try to. It doesn't hurt to call someone up or send them a message on LinkedIn and do some scouting.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think that a company's too aggressive with their sales structure, that's a huge red flag,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll usually tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not for you, just be aware. If it is for you, you want to give it a shot, go
Mm-hmm.
for it. But with sales, it's very hard in that sense. But I would say do your research. If you know something's not going to be a good fit, if you have that gut instinct that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm not comfortable with this, I'm not comfortable with XYZ treatment from whether it's the management team during the interview process, that's usually when a lot of people, in my experience, really figure out, you know what, I don't see this going
Mm-hmm.
well. I think maybe this position would be a better fit.
Right. Yeah. And for me, I know in positions and when I've even hired people, it's always that gut feeling. If my gut is telling me something is wrong, it usually is wrong. And when I haven't listened to it, that's when things have gone wrong. So I think that gut feeling thing is also a very, very good indicator of is this the right place for you? Not necessarily the position, but the place for you. So as we've talked about, we've talked about particular personality and where should I start and what to expect when I get into the business and some pitfalls. But if I want to make a career, let's say I've got all the right things and this is really what it's going to be for me. How far can I go? What are some of the different types of positions even that you can have in sales, and how far can I really go? And where's the pinnacle? Is being and for those of us who are old enough to remember, is being a Zig Ziglar the key top thing, or what? So tell me about where can I go in a career in sales?
Well, that's another great question because every company is different, every position is different. But what I've seen, once you cross the bridge from business development rep to account executive or account manager, I would say $60,000 to $120,000. Of course, with the sales job, it's a bit different where you have your base pay and then you have your commission, right? And some jobs have higher base pay, and a little bit component is a small component would be the commission. But I've met some people who make $250,000 selling cars. I know some people who push deep into six figures working with the government, and it's still a sales position. And then there's some account executives under them who make $250,000, right? And it all depends on the complexity of the business, and never mind the software side. Regularly from 90 to 250K. So these are very lucrative positions you can get if you dig deep, if it's right for you. It's a very rewarding position that can literally pay dividends through your life.
Yeah. Good.
And also I've seen people transition from sales positions to management positions. Of course, if you feel like you'd be a better manager, proving yourself on the sales floor is a great way to do that. And then just changing your career. There's some people who've done really good in sales, but whether it's the pressure of the job, it's the changes I've mentioned, the personalities involved, however you want to put it, some of them transition to data management or executive positions. A VP of sales is definitely in the cards. And then the third one, you're mentioning Zig Ziglar and whatnot, some of them go on to become entrepreneurs. Sales is very entrepreneurial. I remember a director of sales I worked with told me, look at this like it is your business. If you don't bring that number up, you're going to be paid less. That's how you need to look at it. And that helps you transition to the entrepreneurial space, where every day it is about you getting up, you sending the emails, you sending the packages out, you calling your customers, you building the relationships. And that translates very well once you've been successful in sales. Never mind the connections you make that may help you with your own entrepreneurial venture. For instance, famously, there's some people who are executives at Microsoft who then start their own businesses working with Microsoft, right? Now, that's a very particular example, but I've seen that as well in the various companies I've worked with where, hey, this is a need that no one's doing or satisfying. I'll just go ahead and start this venture and connect the dots. So there's lots of different options once you get in sales and you've proven yourself that you're a hard worker, that you're able to make it rain, so to speak. It does open up a lot of doors for yourself in all sorts of ways.
One of the things I want to ask you here, this is kind of and you've actually touched on the next question a lot, which about next steps I can take after a career in sales. But my uncle, many years ago, he's passed away. He used to work for a company called Marsic Line, which was a cargo shipping company. And he used to do the whole thing of taking clients out to golf and taking them out to dinner and this and that. And you see that sort of stuff, of course, in the movies sometimes. Is that still a part of the business, or is that really now changed because a lot of companies are concerned about ethics? And I know this is a question that just kind of popped into my head. And so tell me a little bit about that aspect of the sales business.
Well, I mean, that's definitely a component of it. Not anything illegal. Want to be clear, but in terms of a little bit of schmoozing or going out for lunches, going out for dinners, that's an aspect of business that in this email software not interpersonal world we live in today, where it's Zoom calls and whatnot, that's still a component. And I see it more at trade shows now, or where you're going, you can grab a bite to eat together. There are still dedicated dinners, and all of that is tracked and written off and whatnot. I've never seen anything too crazy. I've heard stories, some more stories where, wow, I'm amazed you were able to get away with that in the first place. But I don't see a lot of that anymore for all sorts of reasons, and I'm very conservative that way. Going back to one of the questions you had before, you always want to play it safe and make sure you're not doing anything illegal, because there's no benefit to it at the end of the day. There's, never mind getting caught. You just don't want to ruin your reputation. It'll follow you to the next gig, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and I agree with you. I talked about that in one of my previous podcasts about Actually, it's coming up. I think is it this week? It's actually coming up. And dealing with vendors. If you are working for a company and you have vendors working for you, one of the things I always say is make sure you do everything ethically and above board. So if your company has a policy that you can't accept more than a $25 gift, make sure you don't violate that company policy. Even if the vendor comes to you and says, we want to give you a 3-day paid vacation for you and your spouse at this golf resort. If your company says you can't take more than $25 or $50, don't take it. And so ethics is really a big thing with me. Always when I dealt with my vendors, I always made sure that they said, I want to go out and buy you coffee. Okay, coffee was fine, not a problem. Lunch was okay. But really, more than that, I didn't do it because I was always worried that someone might come back and say something in my organization, say Joe violated the ethics rule. So that's really a very important thing. So, Derek, as we wrap this conversation up, we've talked a lot about your particular personality or some traits that you've had to have. I want to start selling. How should I start? Where do I begin? And what to expect in it? And what some things I shouldn't do when I get into it? And where can I go? Or do you have any final thoughts on this?
As a salesperson, that's how I identify myself, and it's really funny. Someone I respect a lot once told me, manufacturing gets in your blood, which has sort of been my chosen space since 2016, like you said. But sales gets in your blood as well, and to a certain extent, once you really get into it, all of a sudden everything starts seeming like a sale one way or another. So I don't think it would hurt anybody to at least, even if it's some surface level YouTube videos, some websites, how people sell. It's very universal at the end of the day, and I'd encourage everybody to learn a little bit, even if it's not what they want to get into, because it can benefit you in some surprising ways.
Okay. So let me take this opportunity, Derek, to say thank you. Thank you for coming, interviewing with me, sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And one last thing for you is, if somebody is interested in saying, hey, Derek, I'd like to just chat with you. I'm thinking about getting into sales. I'd just like to chat with you. What's a good way for them to get a hold of you?
I would say LinkedIn.
Okay.
Just reach out on LinkedIn. My profile's open to the public. I don't think I have anything super secret, but just feel free to shoot me a message. I'm more than happy to chat, discuss resources, anything like that. Love meeting new people, obviously. Love networking, and just go from there.
Okay. Well, thank you once again. Thank you so much. And to all our listeners, this is Joseph Barone, the CEO of A Fool for Learning, signing out. Remember, learn, perform, succeed.